The morning air on Kepler Station Academy buzzed with the usual chatter of interspecies students heading to their first classes of the semester. Zephyrians floated gracefully past towering Chronite warriors, while nimble Vexti scurried between the legs of the massive, crystalline quartz beings. It was a typical day at the most prestigious military academy in the galaxy, where the brightest minds from dozens of species came to learn the art of warfare and diplomacy. That normalcy shattered the moment she walked through the main gates. The figure stood nearly 6 feet tall, encased from head to toe in what appeared to be primitive metal armor. The plates were a dull, gunmetal gray, scratched and dented as if they had seen countless battles. A full helmet obscured her face completely, with only a narrow visor revealing the faintest hint of eyes beneath. Her movements were measured, deliberate, each step creating a soft metallic clink that echoed across the courtyard. Students stopped mid-conversation to stare. Professor Vex then, a seasoned Zephyrian instructor floating near the academy's entrance, felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. In all his centuries of teaching, he had never seen anything quite so archaic yet intimidating. "What species is that?" whispered Kale, a young Chronite whose massive frame dwarfed most other students. His rocky exterior shifted nervously as he watched the armored figure pass by. "I don't know," replied Zara, a Vexti whose large black eyes tracked every movement. "The armor design doesn't match any known technological patterns. It's almost ancient." The armored figure paid no attention to the growing crowd of onlookers. She walked with purpose toward the registration building, her heavy boots leaving small indentations in the metal flooring. Behind her visor, keen eyes took in everything around her, cataloging exits, potential threats, and the positioning of every being in her vicinity. Dean Thromax, a distinguished quartz being whose crystalline form sparkled in the artificial sunlight, emerged from the main building just as the figure approached. His usual composure wavered slightly as he processed what he was seeing. The armor appeared to be some form of steel alloy, but the craftsmanship was unlike anything in their databases. It was neither purely functional like Chronite war gear nor elegantly designed like Zephyrian battlesuits. It was something else entirely. "Welcome to Kepler Station Academy," Dean Thromax said, his voice resonating through his crystal structure. "I am Dean Thromax. You must be our new transfer student." The helmet turned toward him, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then, a voice emerged from within the armor, filtered and slightly distorted by whatever communication system was built into the helmet. "I am here for enrollment," she said simply. The voice was clearly female, though the helmet's modulation made it difficult to determine much else about her species. "Of course. Your application was quite unique. We rarely receive transfer requests with such limited background information." Dean Thromax gestured toward the registration building. "Perhaps we could begin with your species designation? Our records show only a question mark in that field." Another pause. Students had begun to gather at a respectful distance, their curiosity overwhelming their usual social boundaries. Even the typically aloof senior students had stopped to observe this unusual newcomer. "I prefer not to disclose that information at this time," she replied. Professor Vex then floated closer, his gaseous form rippling with interest. "The armor you wear is fascinating. The metallurgy appears to be quite primitive by galactic standards, yet the design suggests combat effectiveness. Are you perhaps from one of the outer rim worlds?" The helmet tilted slightly in his direction. "It serves its purpose." Dean Thromax exchanged a glance with Professor Vex then. In their experience, students were typically eager to discuss their homeworlds and cultural backgrounds. This level of secrecy was unprecedented. "Very well," Dean Thromax said finally. "Your academic credentials, while unconventional, were impressive enough to warrant admission. Your tactical simulation scores were particularly remarkable. However, I must inform you that Academy regulations require species identification for medical and safety purposes." "I understand the regulations," she said. "I request a medical exemption based on cultural sensitivity protocols." The dean's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly as he processed this request. Cultural sensitivity protocols were rarely invoked, and only in cases where species revelation could result in discrimination or safety concerns. "Such exemptions require approval from the Academy Council," he explained. "Until then, you may attend classes, but certain activities may be restricted. That is acceptable." As they spoke, more students had gathered. The crowd now included representatives from at least a dozen different species, all whispering among themselves and trying to piece together clues about the newcomer's identity. Some speculated she might be from the mysterious Phantom Sector, where several species were known to be extremely private about their origins. Others wondered if she might be some kind of artificial being, though her movements seemed too fluid and natural for current android technology. Kale, the young Cronite, leaned down to whisper to his friend Zara, "Look at how she moves. See how her head turns to track movement in her peripheral vision, and the way she positioned herself with her back to the wall. That's not student behavior. That's warrior instinct." Zara nodded, her large eyes reflecting her growing fascination. "And did you notice how Dean Thromax reacted to her tactical scores? I've never seen him look impressed by anything." The registration process continued in the main building, but word of the mysterious armored student spread quickly throughout the academy. By the time she emerged with her class schedule and dormitory assignment, the entire student body seemed to be buzzing with speculation. Her first class was Interstellar Combat Theory with Professor Vexa then. As she entered the lecture hall, conversations died instantly. The room, designed to accommodate various species, had adjustable seating that could accommodate everything from the gaseous Zephyrians to the massive Cronites. She selected a seat in the back corner, positioning herself where she could observe the entire room, while keeping her back protected. Professor Vex then began his lecture on the evolution of battlefield tactics across different species, but even he found himself occasionally glancing at the armored figure in the back. Her helmet never moved, giving no indication of whether she was paying attention or even awake. "The key to understanding modern warfare," Professor Vex then explained, his gaseous form shifting to illustrate different tactical formations, "is recognizing that each species brings unique advantages to combat situations. Cronites provide heavy assault capabilities. Zephyrians excel at reconnaissance and rapid deployment. Vextai serve as infiltration specialists, and quartz beings offer both defensive capabilities and strategic coordination." A hand raised from the middle of the room. It was Jackson, a confident Zephyrian, whose family had a long military tradition. "Professor, what about species that haven't been catalogued? How do we integrate unknown capabilities into our tactical planning?" Professor Vexthen's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "An excellent question, Jackson. Unknown variables are perhaps the most dangerous elements in any conflict. When facing an unfamiliar species, we must rely on observation, adaptation, and often, improvisation." As he spoke, his gaze drifted almost involuntarily toward the armored figure. Of course, the truly skilled warrior learns to use mystery as a weapon itself. Unpredictability can be more valuable than raw firepower. The helmet turned slightly in his direction, though whether this indicated acknowledgement or mere coincidence was impossible to determine. The lecture continued with discussions of famous battles and the tactical innovations that had shaped galactic military doctrine. Throughout it all, the mysterious student remained motionless, offering no questions or comments. When class ended and students began filing out, she remained seated until the room was nearly empty, before rising and walking out without a word. In the hallway, clusters of students gathered to discuss the morning's events. The mysterious newcomer had already become the primary topic of conversation throughout the academy. "I heard she scored perfect marks on every tactical simulation in the application process," whispered one student. "My roommate saw her registration forms. Everything was classified or redacted," added another. "Professor Kelthane thinks she might be some kind of experimental soldier," offered a third. As these conversations swirled around the academy, the subject of their speculation made her way to the dormitory complex. Her assigned room was in the diversity wing, designed to accommodate species with special environmental or privacy needs. The room was spartanly furnished with basic accommodation and an environmental control system that could be adjusted for different atmospheric requirements. She set her few possessions on the desk and activated the room's privacy shields. Only then did she reach up and begin the process of removing her helmet. The seals released with a soft hiss, and the helmet lifted away to reveal features that would have shocked every being in the academy. Her skin was a warm, peachy tone, with short brown hair that had been compressed by the helmet. Her eyes were a striking blue, set in a face that was undeniably human. She looked to be in her early 20s, with features that spoke of both intelligence and determination. More shocking than her appearance, however, was what removing the helmet revealed about the true nature of her armor. The suit was not the primitive metal construction it appeared to be. Beneath the deliberately aged and damaged exterior, advanced holographic projectors, energy shielding systems, and sophisticated sensor arrays were seamlessly integrated. The armor was a masterpiece of engineering, designed to appear archaic while incorporating technology that surpassed anything currently known to the galactic community. She moved to the room's communication terminal and activated a heavily encrypted channel. After several security protocols, a face appeared on the screen. Like her, he was unmistakably human, though older and bearing the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "Agent Sarah Chen, reporting," she said quietly. "I've successfully infiltrated Kepler Station Academy. Excellent work, Sarah. Your cover appears to be holding. Any suspicions about your true nature?" Sarah shook her head. "They're curious about my species and the armor, but they're attributing both to unknown outer rim cultures. The primitive appearance is working perfectly. They have no idea they're looking at human technology." "Good. Remember, your mission is observation and assessment only. We need to understand their military capabilities and training methods before Earth makes first contact. The Council of Species has been the dominant power in this galaxy for millennia. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." "Understood, sir. The students here represent the military elite from dozens of species. If I can learn their tactics and capabilities, we'll have a significant advantage when humanity reveals itself. Be careful, Sarah. If they discover what you really are, it could mean disaster for Earth. As far as the galaxy knows, humans don't exist. We intend to keep it that way until we're ready." The transmission ended, and Sarah was alone again with the weight of her mission. She was not just a student at this academy. She was humanity's first scout into a galaxy that had no idea her species existed. Earth had been watching and listening to galactic communications for decades, learning about the various species and their technologies. But this was the first time a human had actually infiltrated their society. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sarah would spend a year at the academy, learning everything she could about galactic military doctrine, technology, and the political dynamics between species. When she returned to Earth, her intelligence would help humanity decide how to approach first contact. Would they present themselves as equals, seeking membership in the galactic community? Or would they choose a more aggressive approach, using their technological advantages to establish dominance? Sarah looked at herself in the room's mirror, seeing the young woman who carried the hopes and fears of an entire planet on her shoulders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, as she continued to navigate this alien world, while maintaining her carefully constructed facade. Outside her window, the Academy's complex stretched out under alien stars. Somewhere in those buildings, students from across the galaxy were preparing for careers as military officers, diplomats, and leaders. They had no idea that among them walked a representative of a species that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. As Sarah prepared for sleep, she reviewed the day's observations. The various species each had their strengths and weaknesses, but they seemed to operate under the assumption that technological superiority was the key to military dominance. They had no concept of the kind of adaptability and creativity that had made humans successful on Earth. More importantly, they seemed to have grown complacent in their established power structures. That complacency might be humanity's greatest advantage. But first, Sarah had to survive her time at the Academy and learn everything she could about her potential future enemies or allies. The fate of Earth itself might depend on how well she played her role as the mysterious armored student who had shocked them all. 3 weeks had passed since Sarah's arrival at Kepler Station Academy, and her presence had become a constant source of fascination and frustration for both students and faculty. She attended every class punctually, completed assignments with mechanical precision, and maintained her mysterious silence about her origins. Her academic performance was exceptional, particularly in tactical analysis and strategic planning, but she had yet to participate in any practical combat exercises. That was about to change. "Today we begin practical combat assessment," announced Commander Krextal, a veteran Chronite whose battle-scarred exterior told the story of countless conflicts. His massive form dominated the training arena, a sophisticated facility that could simulate any environment found across the galaxy. "You will be divided into mixed species teams for a strategic capture exercise. The goal is simple: retrieve the beacon from the center of the maze while preventing other teams from doing the same." Sarah stood with the other students as team assignments were announced. She found herself grouped with Kale, the young Kronite she had observed on her first day, Zara the Vex TIE Scout, and Marcus, a Zephyrian whose gaseous form flickered with nervous energy. It was a deliberately diverse team, designed to test how different species could coordinate their unique abilities. "Great," muttered Marcus as they moved to their starting position. "We're stuck with the mystery soldier who's never even removed her helmet in public. How are we supposed to coordinate with someone who won't even tell us her capabilities?" Kale's rocky features showed concern as he looked down at Sarah. "He has a point. Effective teamwork requires understanding each member's strengths and limitations. Can you at least tell us what your species is capable of in combat situations?" Sarah's helmet turned toward each of her teammates in turn. Through her advanced sensor array, she was already analyzing their physiological responses, stress levels, and probable combat capabilities. The Kronite's massive frame and dense mineral composition made him ideal for assault tactics, while the Vextai's speed and agility suggested reconnaissance and flanking maneuvers. The Zephyrian's gaseous form could provide aerial surveillance and rapid deployment. "I can adapt to support whatever strategy you develop," she said finally. Zara's large black eyes studied the armored figure intently. "That's not really an answer. Are you a heavy assault type like Kale? A scout like me? Do you have ranged capabilities?" Before Sarah could respond, Commander Krextal's voice boomed across the arena. "Teams have 5 minutes to plan strategy before the exercise begins. Remember, this is not about individual glory. Leadership evaluations will be based on team coordination and tactical innovation." The 4 teammates huddled together while other teams engaged in animated planning sessions around them. Sarah found herself in the unusual position of needing to reveal some of her capabilities without exposing her true nature. "Here's what I can tell you," she began, her modulated voice barely audible above the arena's background noise. "I'm mobile enough to keep up with rapid deployment. I can handle close combat situations, and I'm good at reading terrain and identifying tactical opportunities." "That's still pretty vague," Marcus said, his gaseous form rippling with frustration. "Look," Kale interjected, his practical nature taking over. "We don't have time for this. Based on what I've observed in classes, she knows what she's doing. Let's work with what we have." Zara nodded agreement. "Kale's right. I'll scout ahead and identify threats. Marcus can provide overhead reconnaissance and communication relay. Kale can handle any direct confrontations. And," she looked at Sarah, "you can do whatever it is you do." "I suggest a modified pincer approach," Sarah said, surprising them all with her sudden contribution to the planning. "Zara scouts the primary route, while Marcus provides aerial intelligence. Kale advances along the main corridor to draw attention, while I take an alternate path to flank any opposition. When we reach the center, we coordinate our approach based on what the scouts have discovered." The 3 teammates exchanged glances. The plan was sound, demonstrating a clear understanding of their respective capabilities. "That actually makes sense," Marcus admitted, reluctantly. Commander Krextal's voice rang out again. "Exercise begins now." The arena transformed around them, holographic walls rising to create a complex 3-dimensional maze filled with obstacles, hiding spots, and multiple pathways to the center. Environmental effects began immediately. Simulated gravity fluctuations, artificial weather patterns, and sensor-disrupting energy fields, designed to test adaptability under changing conditions. Zara immediately darted ahead, her natural agility allowing her to navigate the narrow passages with ease. Marcus rose into the air, his gaseous form spreading thin to avoid detection while maintaining visual contact with the team. Kale began his advance along the main corridor, his heavy footsteps echoing ominously through the maze. Sarah took her assigned alternate route, but what her teammates couldn't see was how dramatically her capabilities exceeded their expectations. Her armor's sensor array was mapping the entire maze in real time, tracking the movement of all opposing teams through thermal and electromagnetic signatures. The sophisticated tactical computer built into her helmet was running probability calculations on dozens of potential scenarios simultaneously. More importantly, her enhanced human reflexes and tactical training were processing information at a speed that would have amazed her alien classmates. Where they saw a complex maze requiring careful navigation, she saw patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities that her enhanced cognitive abilities identified almost instantly. "Contact ahead," Zara's voice whispered through their communication system. Team 3 is moving through the eastern corridor. 2 Chronites and a Quartz being. They're taking a direct approach to the center. I see Team 5 from above, Marcus added. Mixed composition, taking the upper routes. They'll reach the center before Team 3 if current pace continues. Sarah processed this information while simultaneously analyzing the structural integrity of the maze walls around her. Her armor's detailed material analysis had identified several weak points that could be exploited for tactical advantage. Kale, continue your advance but reduce pace by 20%, Sarah instructed, her modulated voice carrying a confidence that surprised her teammates. Marcus, track Team 5's exact position and identify any bottlenecks in their route. Zara, fall back and observe Team 3's formation. I'm going to try something. Try what? Marcus asked, but Sarah was already moving. What happened next would be discussed in tactical analysis classes for months afterward. Sarah approached one of the maze walls she had identified as structurally compromised. Instead of attempting to go around or over it like conventional thinking would suggest, she analyzed the specific stress points and applied precise force at exactly the right angle. The wall collapsed in a controlled manner, creating a new pathway that bypassed 2 major corridor systems entirely. How did she do that? Kale muttered, hearing the controlled destruction behind him. But Sarah was already moving through her newly created shortcut, her armor's advanced systems calculating the most efficient route to intercept Team 5 before they could reach the beacon. Her human adaptability was allowing her to think outside the rigid tactical doctrines that governed how the various alien species approached problems. Team 5 is in trouble, Marcus reported, his aerial view giving him the best perspective on the developing situation. Something's wrong. They've stopped advancing and seem to be confused, like their route just disappeared. What Marcus was observing was Sarah systematically restructuring the maze around Team 5, using her understanding of the holographic system's parameters to create dead ends where passages had existed moments before. Her armor's advanced computing power had hacked into the arena's environmental control system, something that should have been impossible with the primitive technology she appeared to be carrying. Zara, what's Team 3's status? Sarah asked while continuing her manipulation of the maze structure. Still advancing, but they're being more cautious now. I think they heard the wall collapse and they're not sure what it means. Sarah was now approaching the center of the maze from an angle that none of the other teams had considered possible. Her route had bypassed every major defensive position and avoided all the choke points where teams would typically engage each other. All teams, converge on the beacon chamber, she instructed. Kale, enter from the main corridor in 30 seconds. Marcus, provide cover from above. Zara, take the eastern entrance and be ready for rapid extraction. Wait, Kale said, confusion evident in his voice. How do you know there are multiple entrances to the beacon chamber? The briefing didn't include detailed schematics. Sarah paused for just a moment, realizing she had revealed more than intended. Her armor's sensors had mapped the entire facility in detail, but that level of reconnaissance capability far exceeded what any known species could achieve with apparently primitive technology. I observed the arena's construction patterns during our initial briefing, she said carefully. The design philosophy suggests multiple access points for balanced gameplay. It was a plausible explanation, though it didn't fully account for the precision of her knowledge. Her teammates accepted it for now, too focused on the mission to analyze the implications thoroughly. The beacon chamber was a large circular room at the center of the maze, with the target device sitting on a pedestal in the middle. Multiple entrances allowed for various tactical approaches, but they also created opportunities for ambush and crossfire situations. Sarah entered the chamber first, her movements fluid and controlled as she assessed the environment. The beacon was protected by an energy field that required simultaneous input from multiple team members to deactivate, a deliberate design choice to encourage cooperation. Chamber secured, she reported as her teammates arrived at their assigned entrances. No immediate threats detected, but as they moved to claim the beacon, Team 3 burst through the main entrance, their Cronite warriors charging forward with typical directness. At the same time, Team 5 emerged from an upper access tunnel, having finally found an alternate route to bypass Sarah's maze modifications. What followed was a brief but intense three-way engagement that showcased the tactical principles Professor Vex then had discussed in his lectures. The Cronites relied on overwhelming force, The mixed Team 5 attempted coordinated specialist tactics, and Sarah's team adapted. Zara, flank left and disrupt their communication array, Sarah commanded while simultaneously analyzing the optimal solution pattern for the beacon's security system. Marcus, create visual interference above the pedestal. Kyle, hold the main entrance but don't engage unless necessary. Her teammates moved with precision, trusting her tactical judgment despite not fully understanding her capabilities. Meanwhile, Sarah was processing combat data at superhuman speed, identifying weaknesses in their opponents' formations, and calculating probability matrices for dozens of potential outcomes. The beacon's security system required specific biometric inputs from team members, but Sarah's advanced sensors had already analyzed the necessary patterns. As chaos erupted around the chamber, she calmly began the unlocking sequence while her teammates executed their assignments with remarkable efficiency. Target acquired, Sarah announced as the beacon's energy field deactivated. The exercise ended with Sarah's team claiming victory. But the manner of their success had raised more questions than it answered. Commander Krextal's post-exercise analysis focused heavily on their unconventional tactics and the mysterious team member, whose capabilities seemed to defy easy categorization. Student, Commander Krextal, addressed Sarah directly, his massive form looming over her as other teams filed out of the arena. Your tactical assessment capabilities are remarkable. The maze modifications you accomplished should not have been possible with standard equipment. Sarah's helmet remained fixed on the Chronite commander, betraying nothing of her thoughts. I observed patterns in the environmental systems and adapted accordingly. Yes, but the level of environmental manipulation you achieved suggests access to advanced computational resources. Your armor appears primitive, yet you demonstrated capabilities that rival our most sophisticated tactical computers. This was dangerous territory. Sarah could sense her cover story becoming strained under scrutiny from someone with actual combat experience. Perhaps, she said carefully, primitive is a relative term. Sometimes simple solutions are more effective than complex ones. Commander Krextal studied her for a long moment, his veteran instincts clearly telling him that something about this student didn't add up, but without concrete evidence, he couldn't pursue his suspicions further. Interesting perspective, he finally said. I look forward to seeing how you perform in more complex scenarios. As Sarah left the arena with her teammates, she realized that her time at the academy was becoming increasingly precarious. Her human adaptability and advanced technology were giving her capabilities that exceeded what any known species could achieve, and perceptive instructors were beginning to notice inconsistencies in her cover story. The mission was becoming more dangerous with each passing day, but the intelligence she was gathering about galactic military capabilities was invaluable. Earth needed this information to prepare for eventual first contact, but Sarah was beginning to wonder if she could maintain her disguise long enough to complete her assignment. That night, in the privacy of her dormitory room, Sarah transmitted another encrypted report to Earth, but as she removed her helmet and looked at her reflection in the darkened window, she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Her secret was becoming harder to keep, and she was beginning to attract exactly the kind of attention that could expose humanity's existence to a galaxy that wasn't ready to learn about them. The crisis began in Sarah's 7th week at the academy, during what should have been a routine diplomatic simulation exercise. Instead of the controlled environment she had grown accustomed to, alarms began blaring throughout Kepler Station, and emergency lights bathed the corridors in harsh red illumination. This is not a drill. Dean Thromax's crystalline voice resonated through the Academy's communication system. All students and faculty report to emergency stations immediately. We are under attack. Sarah's helmet display immediately activated its tactical analysis mode as she joined the stream of students and instructors moving through the corridors. Her advanced sensors detected multiple energy signatures approaching the station, and the data patterns were unlike anything in the galactic military databases she had studied. Unknown vessels emerging from hyperspace. Commander Krextal's voice boomed over the communication system. Configuration and technology signatures do not match any known species. All combat-ready personnel to defensive positions. In the Academy's main command center, chaos reigned as staff struggled to understand what they were facing. The attacking ships appeared to be using some form of advanced stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to conventional sensors, while their weapons systems generated energy patterns that defied current understanding of galactic physics. Professor Vexthen's gaseous form rippled with distress as he studied the incoming data. The energy signatures are impossible, he muttered to Dean Thromax. They're achieving power outputs that should require massive reactor cores. But the ships appear to be relatively small. Sarah found herself assigned to a mixed group of senior students tasked with defending one of the station's critical power junctions. Her teammates included several species she had come to know well during her time at the academy, but the atmosphere was entirely different from their previous training exercises. This was real combat, with actual consequences. Formation Gamma 7, ordered Jackson, the confident Zephyrian, who had naturally assumed leadership of their defensive unit. Standard interspecies tactical deployment. We hold this position until relief arrives. But as the unknown attackers began their assault on the station, it became clear that standard tactics were woefully inadequate. The attacking forces moved with a fluid coordination that suggested either advanced artificial intelligence or a hive mind structure, and their weapons technology was generations ahead of anything the Academy's defenders possessed. Shields are failing on Deck 7, reported one of the quartz beings monitoring the station's defensive systems. Whatever they're using, it's cutting through our energy barriers like they don't exist. Sarah watched the tactical display through her helmet's advanced analysis systems, and what she saw sent a chill through her. The attacking ships weren't just using advanced technology, they were using principles of physics that Earth's scientists had only theorized about. These weren't just unknown aliens, they were something far more dangerous. Jackson, she called to the Zephyrian leader. Their attack patterns suggest they're testing our responses. This isn't a full assault, it's reconnaissance in force. They're learning our capabilities. How can you tell? Jackson's gaseous form flickered with stress. All I see is overwhelming firepower. Sarah's human tactical training allowed her to recognize patterns that the alien students missed. The attackers were systematically probing different types of defenses, cataloging response times, and mapping the station's strategic weaknesses. It was exactly the kind of intelligence gathering that Earth had been conducting, but far more aggressive. They're not trying to destroy us quickly, Sarah explained, her modulated voice carrying absolute certainty. They're studying us, which means they plan to face more targets like this station in the future. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If these unknown attackers were gathering intelligence about galactic military capabilities, it suggested they were preparing for a much larger conflict. Emergency bulkhead breach in Section 12, came another report over the communication system. Unknown hostiles have boarded the station. All defensive teams, prepare for close combat engagement. Sarah's situation had just become infinitely more complex. She was about to face combat against an unknown species while maintaining her cover as a mysterious but ultimately conventional galactic citizen. But as enemy forces began moving through the station's corridors, she realized that maintaining her cover might become secondary to simple survival. The first contact came when her defensive team encountered a group of attackers moving toward their position. What Sarah saw through her helmet's enhanced vision systems shocked her more than anything she had experienced since arriving at the academy. The attacking beings were humanoid in basic structure, but their technology was so advanced that they might as well have been from another dimension. They wore seamless suits that seemed to bend light around them, carried weapons that fired projectiles of pure energy, and moved with a coordination that suggested either perfect telepathic communication or shared consciousness. "Contact front," Jackson called out as he prepared to engage the enemy with his team's standard tactics. But Sarah could see immediately that standard tactics would be suicide. Her human pattern recognition capabilities allowed her to analyze the attacker's movements and identify weaknesses that her alien classmates couldn't perceive. More importantly, her advanced armor was detecting energy signatures that suggested these beings might actually be artificial constructs rather than living creatures. "Wait," Sarah commanded, stepping forward before her teammates could engage. "Something's wrong. Look at their movement patterns. They're too synchronized, too perfect. These might not be natural beings." "What are you talking about?" Kale demanded, his massive chronite form ready for battle. "They're right there. We need to fight them." Sarah's tactical computer was running advanced analysis protocols, and the results confirmed her suspicions. The attackers' energy signatures were too stable, their movements too precise, their coordination too perfect. These were artificial constructs, incredibly advanced ones, but machines nonetheless. "They're androids," Sarah announced, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "Artificial constructs designed to study and catalog our combat responses. Whoever sent them is using this attack as a massive intelligence-gathering operation. Her teammates stared at her in amazement. Even with all their advanced sensors and analytical equipment, none of them had identified what she had seen almost immediately. "How could you possibly know that?" Zara asked, her large eyes reflecting confusion and growing suspicion. Sarah realized she had revealed too much, but with enemy constructs approaching their position, there was no time for careful explanations. "My species has experience with artificial beings," she said quickly. "Trust me on this." What happened next would later be analyzed by military historians as one of the most remarkable small-unit combat actions in galactic history. Instead of engaging the androids with conventional weapons and tactics, Sarah began using her knowledge of artificial intelligence to exploit their programming limitations. She moved in patterns that confused their target acquisition systems, used the station's environmental controls to create sensor interference, and most importantly, she began thinking like a human in ways that the android's creators had never anticipated. "Follow my lead," Sarah commanded as she began what appeared to be a chaotic retreat through the station's corridors. But her teammates soon realized that her movements were anything but random. She was leading the pursuing androids through a carefully planned route that maximized confusion and minimized their operational efficiency. "The environmental controls," Zara suddenly understood. "You're using them to disrupt their coordination." Sarah had indeed been manipulating the station's atmospheric processors, artificial gravity systems, and electromagnetic fields to create interference patterns that degraded the androids' ability to communicate with each other. It was a tactic that required intimate understanding of both artificial intelligence principles and environmental engineering, CS, knowledge that no known galactic species possessed in combination. As they moved through the station, Sarah's teammates began to realize that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Her tactical awareness was operating on a level that exceeded anything they had encountered. Even among their most experienced instructors, she was thinking several moves ahead of both the androids and her own teammates, orchestrating a running battle that systematically degraded the enemy's capabilities while preserving her team's strength. "There," Sarah pointed to a junction ahead where several corridors met. "We make our stand there. The intersection will limit their ability to coordinate attacks, and the environmental controls are strongest in that section." But as they prepared for their final engagement, catastrophe struck from an unexpected direction. A stray energy blast from the ongoing space battle outside penetrated the station's hull near their position, causing explosive decompression in the adjacent corridor. Kale, the massive chronite whose dense mineral composition made him the most durable member of their team, was caught in the blast. The decompression hurled him against a bulkhead with tremendous force, and even his rock-like physiology couldn't withstand the impact. He lay motionless, his normally vibrant mineral surface now dim and cracked. "Kale!" Zara screamed, rushing toward her fallen teammate despite the obvious danger. The approaching androids immediately recognized the tactical opportunity presented by the team's distraction and casualties. They began advancing with renewed coordination, their weapon systems charging for what would clearly be a final assault. In that moment, Sarah faced a choice that would define not only her mission, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. She could maintain her cover, fight conventionally, and probably watch her teammates die, or she could reveal her true capabilities and save them, but in doing so expose humanity's existence to a galaxy that wasn't ready for that knowledge. The decision took less than a second. Sarah's armor systems shifted from passive disguise mode to full combat configuration. The apparently primitive metal plating split apart to reveal the sophisticated technology beneath. Energy shields activated around her form, and weapon systems emerged from concealed compartments. Most shocking of all, her helmet retracted to reveal her unmistakably human features. "Stay behind me," Sarah commanded, her voice now clear and unmodulated. "I'm going to end this." What followed was a display of human ingenuity, adaptability, and technological advancement that left her alien classmates speechless. Sarah didn't just fight the androids, she outthought them, outmaneuvered them, and systematically dismantled their operational capabilities, using tactics that existed outside their programming parameters. Her human creativity allowed her to use the station's own systems as weapons, turning environmental controls into tactical advantages and exploiting the androids' reliance on predictable programming. Within minutes, the attacking constructs lay deactivated around the corridor junction. "By the old gods," Jackson whispered, his gaseous form shimmering with shock. "What are you?" Sarah knelt beside Kale, her armor's medical systems scanning his injuries while she considered how to answer. The massive Kronite was alive but badly injured, requiring immediate medical attention. "I'm human," Sarah said simply, her face visible for the first time since arriving at the academy. "My species has been observing the galactic community for decades, preparing for eventual first contact. I was sent here to study your military capabilities and cultural dynamics." "Human?" Zara repeated the unfamiliar word. "But humans don't exist in any of our databases. Where do you come from?" "A planet called Earth, in what you probably classify as the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. We've been developing in isolation, but we've been listening to your communications and learning about your civilization." As Sarah spoke, she was also coordinating Kale's medical evacuation through her armor's communication systems. Her advanced technology was simultaneously treating his injuries and calling for emergency medical teams. "Is this an invasion?" Marcus asked, his voice trembling with fear and confusion. "Are there more of you coming?" Sarah looked at each of her teammates, beings from different worlds who had become something like friends during her time at the academy. "No invasion," she said firmly. "My people sent me to learn about you, to understand who you are and what kind of neighbors you might be. We wanted to know if first contact would lead to friendship or conflict." "And what have you decided?" Jackson asked. Before Sarah could answer, Commander Krextal's voice boomed through the corridor as he arrived with a full security team. The veteran Kronite warrior took in the scene. Deactivated android attackers, an injured student, and Sarah standing without her helmet for the first time. Her human features unmistakable. "Explain," Commander Krextal demanded, his massive form radiating authority and controlled aggression. Sarah straightened, meeting the commander's gaze directly. "My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm a reconnaissance agent from a species called humanity. We come from a world beyond your current territory, and we've been preparing for first contact with the galactic community." "You're a spy?" "Yes," Sarah admitted without hesitation. "But not the kind you're thinking. We weren't gathering intelligence for conquest. We were trying to understand what we would face when we revealed ourselves. My people have debated for years whether to approach you as supplicants seeking membership in your community, or as equals prepared to defend ourselves if necessary." Commander Krextal studied her for a long moment, his veteran instincts processing both her words and the evidence around him. "And now?" Sarah looked around at the deactivated androids, then at her injured teammate, then at the faces of beings who had become more than just targets of surveillance. "Now I know that the galaxy faces threats that make our debates about first contact irrelevant. Whoever sent these androids has technology that exceeds anything in your databases, and they're gathering intelligence for something much larger than a single attack on a military academy. My people have capabilities that might help in whatever's coming. This conversation is far above my authority level," Commander Krextal said finally. "Dean Thromax and the Academy Council will need to decide how to proceed. But first we need to deal with the immediate situation." As if summoned by his words, Dean Thromax's crystalline form appeared in the corridor, moving faster than Sarah had ever seen a quartz being travel. His surface was flickering with energy patterns that suggested extreme agitation. "The attacking fleet has withdrawn," he announced, then stopped as he noticed Sarah's uncovered face. "What? Who is this?" "This," Commander Krextal said grimly, "is the explanation for a lot of things we couldn't understand about our mysterious student, Dean Thromax, meet humanity's first ambassador to the galaxy. Whether she intended to be, or not." Over the following hours, as the station recovered from the attack and military analysts studied the deactivated androids, Sarah found herself at the center of discussions that would reshape galactic politics. Her presence had been revealed under circumstances that made her value as an ally immediately obvious. While the android attack had demonstrated that the galaxy faced threats requiring new approaches and capabilities, the secret she had carried under her armor, that humanity existed and possessed technology that could tip the balance of galactic power, was no longer secret, but instead of the carefully planned revelation her superiors had envisioned. First contact had come through combat, sacrifice, and the bonds of friendship forged in the crucible of shared danger. As Sarah stood before the Academy Council hours later, still wearing her advanced armor but with her helmet retracted to show her human face, she realized that her mission had evolved far beyond intelligence gathering. She was no longer just a spy observing potential enemies or allies. She had become the bridge between two civilizations that would either stand together against the darkness gathering beyond the galactic rim, or fall separately to threats they couldn't face alone. The question before us, Dean Thromax said to the assembled council, is not whether to trust this human agent. Events have made that decision for us. The question is whether we're ready to accept that our understanding of the galaxy has been fundamentally incomplete, and whether we're prepared to form an alliance with a species we never knew existed. Sarah stepped forward, her young face carrying the weight of two worlds' hopes and fears. Honorable council members, my people have capabilities that could help protect this galaxy from whatever created those androids. But more than that, we have something that might be even more valuable. The perspective of outsiders who have been watching your civilization develop while remaining undetected. We see strengths and weaknesses that you might miss from the inside. And what would humanity want in return for sharing these capabilities? Asked a council member whose species Sarah had never encountered before. Recognition as equals, Sarah said simply. A place in the galactic community where we can contribute our strengths while learning from yours. And the chance to face whatever's coming together, rather than alone. The council's deliberations would continue for hours, but Sarah already knew that the outcome was inevitable. The attack had changed everything, forcing decisions that might have taken decades of careful diplomacy to reach through conventional channels. Her secret was revealed, but in doing so, she had opened a door to a future that neither humanity nor the galactic community could have imagined. Standing in that council chamber, still wearing the armor that had concealed and protected her, Sarah realized that sometimes the most important missions succeed not by maintaining their original objectives, but by adapting to circumstances that transform the very nature of success itself. She had come to study potential enemies and had found potential allies. She had sought to gather intelligence, and had instead become a catalyst for the kind of cooperation that might be the only hope for survival in a galaxy that was proving far more dangerous and complex than anyone had imagined. The secret she carried under her armor had shocked them all. But perhaps that shock was exactly what both civilizations needed to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead.